He's a phantom. Danny Phantom. It probably wasn't too hard to guess, but being a fan of an action cartoon about a transforming hero kid in the mid-2000s, while also admitting I watched a lot of Nickelodeon, I was also a big fan of Danny Phantom as a kid. But unlike American Dragon, I've since gone back to Danny Phantom, and I still enjoy it. Okay, it's not high entertainment, but it's still fun. And of course, there were also 2 Danny Phantom games for me to look at.
Unlike the American Dragon games, both of these are based on a specific episode each, the first being the GBA's The Ultimate Enemy, often considered by Danny Phantom fans to be the best episode of the series. And I agree, it's so good that I can completely ignore the fact that the time travel really doesn't make sense.
Or can I? I mean, what sent the first Danny over the edge without interference from the future? Well, I haven't thought about it before, I don't have to think about it ever.
We're already in familiar territory, not just because of the similar show premises, but because Ultimate Enemy is also a 2D beat-em-up, actually very comparable to Rise of the Hunts Clan. But unlike Jake, Danny is default in his ghost form, and he can kinda take advantage of it. Double tapping either direction turns Danny incorporeal, which isn't just a visual effect, it does make him invincible. Every other ghostly ability, that's a little more complicated. You may notice there's an extra meter beneath the health, that's ghost energy. Bigger ghosts drop orbs that I assume are ectoplasm when they're busted, which can either refill health or energy. But you can't just pick it up, that'd be too easy. You have to suck it up with the Fenton Thermos, an R-button item that can be swapped out at any time for ghost powers that use energy to perform. Which creates a problem. Later in the game, when most of the enemies are big enough to warrant using powers on, they're also always dropping refills. So unless you want to keep switching back and forth constantly, I keep the Thermos equipped at basically all times. There is another way to refill energy, but it's even more of a hassle. By hitting the select button, Invisible here can turn back into Danny Fenton, whose ghost energy refills automatically. The flaw is that Danny Fenton is entirely useless. He's capable of moving and jumping, just way worse than Phantom, and his only form of offense is using the Thermos. Yep, he can't even attack, which means he couldn't kill enemies to drop anything for him to suck up anyway. Besides, taking the time to stop and refill energy is useless when it resets to 0 after each oddly named stage, so stick to standard punches, they do the trick. But let's say you crave the variety and want to use the ghost powers, you still only get a few options. The most useful is Danny's signature Kamehameha wave. There's another invincibility move that doesn't last long but lets you attack while using it, and you'll get the ghostly whale later on. A weak selection, but I can't think of anything better. Okay, that's not really everything, but it's what you have from the start, except for that ghostly whale, that's story-based. Everything else is behind level-ups. Unlike American Dragon, these aren't given out by completing a stage. Doing well gets you experience points which slowly lead to a level up, granting Danny either a new move or a stat upgrade, with some very confusing descriptions. Press the B button 4 times, then press B again. They're also not as obvious changes as Jake got, but they're distributed better. If only they trickle down faster than a guinea pig's food pellets. For a quicker upgrade at the moment, every once in a while a power-up will drop to increase speed, defense, or attack power, and they're all items from different episodes of the show. The same thing can happen with weapons. They're powerful and usually ranged, like this bazooka or this boomerang, but they fire slow and are hard to pull off mid-air, for some reason. My favorite is the baton, not just because it's really fast with strong combos, but the ghostly green makes it look like Danny picked up a Z-Saber. All the help you get is nice, but it's not usually needed. Sure, you'll get swarmed by ghosts at every turn, but they attack very infrequently and don't do much damage anyway. So I guess the weapons are better just to make fighting them different for a little while, stave off the boredom. The only time you'll be having trouble is when the game decides to switch things up, most of all this rooftop platforming. Yes, despite being a character that can walk through walls, disappear, and fly, his jumping sucks. Ignoring all the times I just walked off the edge, which I think is the fault of the emulator, the next rooftop is too far away, it has to be a very precise jump. And it pisses me off because I only discovered later that the dash works like Mega Man X and can therefore extend a jump. And there is a way to fly. I did it once by complete accident and I can't figure out how to do it again. There's even a few times the gameplay as a whole changes into a horizontal shmup. but without any options, so not only is it not very fun, it's kinda hard. And all you're doing is chasing down box launch, so it isn't even interesting. Yep, this game does have bosses, all from the episode, which is nice, but they all follow the same pattern. Boss attacks, dash away, close the distance, and beat the shit out of them. The only ones I find interesting are Clockwork because he reminds me of a Castlevania's Dracula, and Dan Phantom because it's kinda like a mirror match, he does have your moves. So yes, this game does follow the plot of the episode very closely. It doesn't cut or add anything, but the dialogue is a lot more stilted and lifeless than the final episode. I assume the game is using a first draft of the script. This also creates the issue of the game being not much longer than the episode. The Ultimate Enemy was already a double-length episode, bringing it to 44 minutes without commercial breaks, but the game only goes for about an hour. I guess the game looks alright, but having been developed by Ultron instead of WayForward, the sprite work is a little lacking. And it's not the game's fault, but I forgot how bare Danny's design was without that emblem on his costume. I've heard some people claim the music is good, but I think it's really forgettable. It doesn't even have that classic sting from the show. I guess the game's fine, the lackluster design goes well with the short runtime, but you'd be better off spending your time watching the episode. It takes less time and will give you a much more satisfying feeling. Once again, the GBA was not the end for our high school half-a because Urban Jungle released the following year on both the GBA and DS. Now, like Ultimate Enemy, Urban Jungle is also based on a special episode of the series, but I'm not so familiar with this one. My interest waned fast as a kid because no matter how much I loved Danny Phantom, I did not watch much of Season 3, probably to the relief of many fans. Remember how Ultimate Enemy had a bad shmup section? Well, I guess Ultron wanted to rectify that wrong and prove their competency because that's the entirety of Urban Jungle. Let's not be too hasty judging it though, it is noticeably improved, it would have to be to make a whole game out of it. Not in presentation though, I assume since it was also a GBA game it doesn't look or sound much better. I like the 3D models of the environments and cutscenes, they look great, but Danny is way too small in gameplay. Now, let's talk about the options, and I'm not talking in Gradius terminology. Holding down the button does the rapid fire shot so you won't need turbo, and holding it after a double tap does a charge that's incredibly finicky and not worth it. However, nothing so far is very good at defeating the waves of enemies, so either pick those power-ups up to grant a new type of weapon that can be switched at any time, or this one that levels up the potency of all weapons. Once they're maxed out, whether you want the regular spread shot, piercing shots, homing shots, or the classic giant laser, it's all up to you. You may notice there's also another ghost energy meter, used again for the powerful stuff. I tend not to use it because it's got limited ammo, the same way I use a Mega Buster unless I know I can get away with something else. How do you refill it this time? Not the Fenton Thermos, that's used to capture ghosts in a Nintendo Gallery style side quest. It's done by absorbing bullets of the same ghost polarity as Danny. To players of Ikaruga, there's nothing to explain, but for everyone else, enemy shots are either blue or pink. Pressing R switches Danny between the two, and being hit by the matching one refills energy instead of causing damage. I am desperately running out of things to say already. There's a reason I won't review Life Force in the future, good game as it is, and why JonTron needed 5 shmups to fill up a video. There's really nothing to talk about with these games. By design, they're simple, easy to understand, and impossible to master, which brings us to the biggest problem I have here. The game is easy, and that makes it boring. Shmups aren't famously difficult because of tradition, it's because a simple game like this needs to mask its repetitiveness with twitch reflexes, harsh memorization, and the requirement of lots of time to spend. This is the reason old games were so difficult and why Toho is so popular among the shmup audience today. Urban Jungle doesn't have anything that makes this genre popular, and that's why I didn't enjoy it. Mechanically, it's not only sound, but damn good, but the game around those mechanics is dull. It's just too easy to find sufficient enjoyment in. Give Ultimate Enemy some credit, I was going to finish it until the recording messed up. This time, I just stopped after the box ghost boss, who somehow isn't the first boss. And bonus stages like this weren't helping. Surviving 3 minutes has never been so tedious. So, I guess Sam is going to be a plant girl forever. That doesn't sound too bad. I don't think this girl minded.
I hate to say it, but for the first time, American Dragon beat out Danny Phantom. Okay, neither of them had games that were great, but American Dragon at least was a little more consistent and fun. But I suppose Nickelodeon's the one laughing, because even though the Ghost with the Most only starred in 2 games, he has a place in 10 other crossover games and a roller coaster. Also, considering it's still possible to buy DVDs of the show and it's still occasionally shown in reruns on offshoot channels, I guess Nickelodeon won in lasting impact. I mean, we're still talking about him, aren't we? So, happy Halloween. Wear something cool, brush your teeth after eating candy, don't watch anything too scary, and watch out for specters like this guy. Look at him. He just looks like the kind that tells terrible jokes, doesn't he?
Thank you so much for watching this video. It seriously means a lot to me as a small-time YouTuber. But you know what would help me grow? If you liked the video, share it around and subscribe. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but it really does help. And if you could spread the love to the Let's Play channel I'm part of and my Twitter account, I'd appreciate it just as much. There's another video coming, but until then, feel free to check out my last review or anything else in the backlog.